I want to ask you something. I need you to really sit with it before you answer. When was the last time someone offered you help and you actually let them? Now, not like the version of, nah, I'm fine, don't worry about me version, but the actual, yes, I need help. And then you let them or let somebody show up fully without feeling guilty about it, minimizing it, without immediately figuring out how you're going to return the favor. If you're struggling to remember when that was, stay right here for a little while. I want to have a little conversation because what I'm about to like to talk about today is something I have seen over and over again across more than 20 years too. I'm definitely going to say that. We were told that doing it alone was strength, that not needing anyone meant you were powerful, that being the one to do everything or to count on was something to be very proud of. And I'm here today to offer you a different truth. Yes, a different truth. And today's word will be hyper independence. It's not a personality trait. No. For a lot of us, it's a trauma response. And today, we're going to unpack it a little bit to ask you what it means, where it comes from, and what it actually can cost you. So, hyper independence is, you have probably heard the word, maybe you have used it to describe yourself, maybe someone in your life used it to describe you, or you took it as a compliment because it's in a lot of communities, especially women, especially Black women, being the one who does not need anyone to actually do anything, or anyone to frame something, is the ultimate form of strength. I need us to slow down and actually define what we're talking about because there is a real difference between healthy independence and hyper independence, and that difference really matters. Healthy independence means I can stand on my own. I can make decisions. I can navigate life without someone holding my hand through everything. That's good. That's growth. We need that. We want that. Hyper independence is something totally entirely different. Hyper independence is like if we is when self sufficiency stops right there. Stop being a choice and start being the compulsion. And it's like if it's like it is when the thought of asking for help bring anxiety on. It's when someone offers you support and your first instinct is like, before you even think about it, it's a no, a flat out no. It's like you're even breathing than say no. It's when you would rather exhaust yourself completely and let someone see that and let someone see that you're struggling. That is not independence. That is protection. And there is a wound way underneath that. Here's what people do not always realize about hyper-independence. It does not develop because you're actually a loner. It doesn't develop because you just prefer doing things yourself. It develops because at some point in your life, maybe early, maybe recently, you learned that depending on people was not always a safe thing to do. Maybe you needed someone and they were not there. You asked for help and it was used against you. Maybe you trusted someone and they let you down so badly that your nervous system was never quite the same. It's like it made a quicker decision and we're not going to do it again. And so you adapted, because that is what we do as humans. We adapt to survive. We become the person who handles it, the person who figures it out, that person who does not bring her problems to anyone because someone along the line you learned that your needs were too much, or that showing vulnerability meant hurting, or that the only way to stay safe was to stay really contained. And here is where this connects to see who you are as yourself. Because when you spend years operating from that place, years of proving you do not need anyone, years of being the strong one, years of handling everything all so alone, it starts to shape your identity. You stop seeing it as a coping mechanism. You start seeing it as who you are. And that is where it gets really complicated. Because now we start to just talk about the behavior. We talk about how do you understand your own worth. Whether you believe you are someone who deserves to receive, you know, or rather you believe you allow these needs to change. That is a self-worth conversation. It runs deep. Let me paint. two pictures for you because I want you to see in real life, not just in theory. Picture the first woman. She's successful. She runs a household. She's true to her job. She is the friend everybody calls in crisis. If you look at her life from the outside, you would think she has it all together. And she does, in the sense that everything is functioning, but she's exhausted in a way she cannot really fully explain. Does that remind you of anybody? She has not cried in front of anyone in years. When her friend asks if she's okay, she says yes before you even finish the sentence. She does not ask for help, not because she does not need it, but because her body will not allow her to do that. Asking feels very dangerous. Needing feels like form of weakness. And being seen as weak feels like a threat. She is willing to take. Basically, like she's not going to be seen as no fool in her eyes. That woman is considered, and I say quotation, strong. She's surviving. And she has been doing this for so long that she forgets there's another option. Picture the second woman. She's in a relationship, or she just left one, and everyone keeps telling her she's so independent. She's so, confident. She takes it as a compliment. But the truth is, she has never fully let her partner in. She does everything herself, not because she wants to, but because letting someone in means letting them see or letting them be too close. And letting someone in may hurt her. And she's not trying to do that again. She wants to stay in control. That's the safe space. That's the quiet place. Her nervous system is going to be calm. Of course, everything, because control means safety. I have sort of crossed these women in my life in different settings, different circumstances, different chapters of my life, of their life. And I can tell you that underneath both of them, it's the same thing. A younger version of themselves who needs someone and someone else to learn for them, someone else to take the lead. And one over another, that needing costs people so much. Here's the reframe I want you to take from today's conversation. And I want you to really let this land. Hyper independence was never about being strong. I want you to understand that. It was about being the safe. You did not become someone who does everything alone because you are naturally that way. You became that person because at some point, doing something alone felt so much safer, so much calm than the alternative. And that is your nervous system. You're brilliant, adaptive, protective. Honor this. It builds it builds systems. Like it builds a version of you that can function without depending on anyone. And that version of you thought, I want you to honor that. I'm not asking you to be ashamed of it, but I'm asking you to consider this. The walks that protect you from the way you are seen or the same walks is keeping you isolated in the self-sufficiency that keeps you safe, be the one that the pattern keep you from receiving the love and the support and the connection and the help that you actually deserve. You do not have to keep, earning your own survival. You are allowed to receive. You are allowed to need. You are allowed to let people in out asking or out saying that you're weak or broken or backing up because someone hurt you. That is not weakness. That is healing. So what do we do with all this? Because I am not here to name a thing and then leave you sitting here without a direction. That is not how I operate. Healing from hyper independence is not about becoming dependent on everyone for everything. Let me really be clear with you. It's not. This is about moving towards what I call a healthy interdependence, the ability to fully be in your own strength and also allow people to stand in with you, to ask for help and really feel good about it. Both things can be true at the same time. Here's where I think you should start. And come back to this video and look at this again, please. Notice the reflex the next time, like when someone offers help and you automatically answer to them is no. Pause. Just pause long enough to ask yourself one honest question. Am I saying no because I'm genuinely do not need it? Or I'm saying no because I'm receiving what makes me feel uncomfortable? The pause alone can be so transformative. Practice receiving in small moments. You do not have to start, by vulnerable dumping everything onto someone. No, then this will revert back to your old ways. Start small. Let someone tell you, hold a door for you. Let someone help with a project. Let someone bring you coffee, instead of you going and get the coffee. Let someone pay, for something and you don't you know how you calculate and for them to pay back or you calculate and paying back. Like, allow them to pay it. Without saying, okay, I got my half. If they ask to pay for it, them. Receiving is like a muscle, it's always like moving it. And sometimes when it's tense, well, don't kind of because you used to be in control of stuff, and if it's like, not used, but you have to build this slowly at a time and just think about that, you know, honestly. Like so because hyper independence does not come from no, this is a story that's underneath it. This is a moment and this is a series of moments where we decide, you know, if it was safer to do it alone. And the story, in your story, my story, it is supposed to be looked at with compassion and not judgment, not to re traumatize yourself, but to understand yourself because you cannot heal what you refuse to see. I want to leave you with this. You have spent a long time being everything for everyone, including yourself. You have carried things that were way too heavy. You have smiled when you were breaking inside. You have said fine when you were nothing but fine. And you have done all this because somewhere along the way you learned that that was the only way to be safe. But you are not that younger version of yourself anymore. You have survived what's needed to survive. And now, if you are ready, you can choose different things to do. Not because you're weak, because you're wise enough to know the real strength, including knowing when to put something down. No, your worth is not measured by how much you carry alone. It never really was. It's just that it wasn't taught to us that way. That's the truth I want you to hear. And I want you to walk away with that today. If this conversation resonates with you, and you want to go deeper, please follow me. Like, click subscribe and share. I also have free resources and my guide or in my, I link it down at the bottom. Grab it. It's free and it's a real starting point. And if you're not ready to be part of the community, it's fine. Just still get to grab the information down the link. But if you are, subscribe because we have so much more of these conversations. And I don't want you to miss them. Peace.